Good morning. I'm Hassan Giordano, and this is your DMV Daily Dose for Thursday, February 6, 2020.
It's currently raining and 37 degrees in Baltimore. Expect cloudy skies, then rain starting in the morning. Temperatures are heading up from 37 degrees to 51 tonight.
The Associated Press is reporting on President Donald Trump, who won impeachment acquittal yesterday in the United States Senate, bringing to a close only the third presidential trial in American history, with votes that split the country. It tested civic norms and it fed the tumultuous 2020 race for the White House. Now, with Chief Justice John Roberts presiding, senators swore to do an impartial justice, stood and stated their votes for the roll call, guilty or not guilty, in a swift tally almost exclusively along party lines. Trump, the Chief Justice, then declared, shall be and hereby is acquitted of the charges. Now, the outcome followed months of remarkable impeachment proceedings, from Speaker Nancy Pelosi's House to Mitch McConnell's Senate, reflecting the nation's unrelenting partisan divide 3 years into the Trump presidency. What started as Trump's request for Ukraine to, quote, do us a favor, spun into a far-reaching 28,000-page report compiled by House investigators accusing an American president of engaging in shadow diplomacy that threatened U.S. foreign relations for personal and political gain as he pressured the ally to investigate Democratic rival Joe Biden ahead of this year's election. No president has ever been removed by the U.S. Senate. Now, the Baltimore Sun is reporting that 2 police officers from Anne Arundel County were shot overnight as they were chasing a person of interest in a separate homicide case. Police spokesman Sergeant Jacqueline Davis said early Thursday morning that the department was investigating a homicide after a person was found dead of a gunshot wound inside of a home in the 600 block of Newfield Road in Glen Burnie around 5 p.m. Davis said an officer attempted to conduct a traffic stop with a person of interest in the case, but that person fired and struck the officer before fleeing the scene. Now, as police continued to pursue the man, Davis said he was chased into the Stony Beach townhouse community in Anne Arundel County, where he shot a second officer. Both officers were taken to the hospital and are in stable condition. Our prayers are with them. Now, the suspect remains at large and is considered armed and dangerous. Davis said that she believes he's on foot in Stony Beach, and police are looking for a 6-foot, skinny white male, possibly with neck tattoos. Now, during his annual State of the State speech on Wednesday, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan pressed lawmakers to act on, quote, out-of-control crime that is destroying Baltimore City. The governor said people are being shot every single day in Baltimore City. This is an urgent crisis, and we have an obligation to do something about it right now. Now, the second-term Republican governor said Baltimore, the state's largest city, has suffered from more than 300 homicides a year for 5 consecutive years, and somebody and something needs to be done about it. Democrats responded by arguing that Hogan is trying to deflect blame for rising violence from himself, noting that crime has gone up during his 5 years in office across the state of Maryland, not just in the city of Baltimore, and saying that many criminals charged in Baltimore could have been better off supervised by state law enforcement agencies. The issue of Baltimore violence is emerging as a point of contention in the Maryland General Assembly session this year. Hogan, Republican lawmakers, and Democratic lawmakers have all proposed bills aimed at either furthering punishing criminals or preventing crime. The time has come for Baltimore City to finally take back its streets and communities once and for all, and they simply cannot do it without decisive action from the men and women of the Maryland General Assembly, Hogan said. The governor's focus on Baltimore made for a few uncomfortable moments for Mayor Bernard C. Jack Young, who was seated among dignitaries in the House of Delegates chamber for the speech, says Luke Broadwater of the Baltimore Sun. Baltimore City Mayor Young said that he sat there almost cringed in his seat. Young, a Democrat who was running this year to win a full 4-year term as mayor, said that it was frustrating to hear Hogan talking about Baltimore when crime is up in some of the surrounding counties as well. You know, you just don't have to pinpoint Baltimore, Young said. But he said that he would review Hogan's proposals to see if they have any merit. And it appears as if Democrats in Annapolis are suspicious themselves of any Hogan crime initiative, as Maryland Matters reports on Democratic lawmakers who question the governor's sincerity while pointing to rising crime statewide as they press for a stronger government response to the public safety crisis gripping the state's largest city earlier this week, offering a package of bills that they said would bring greater resources to distressed communities. They also accused Governor Larry Hogan of pulling resources from low-income areas. Last year saw a record 348 murders in the city of Baltimore, more than what occurred in the entire New York City, a jurisdiction that's more than 10 times as large as Baltimore. It was the 5th straight year in a row that homicide rate topped 300, or nearly one murder a day. Now, lawmakers pressed for a crackdown on illegal weapons, greater supervision of residents who are on parole and probation, improved information sharing and coordination among local agencies, beefed up monitoring of drugs and guns coming into the port of Baltimore, and increased penalties for people who fail to report lost or stolen guns. Legislators also announced support for a measure to crack down on witness intimidation, a cause that Hogan has championed for years. We have reached a tipping point in our approach to public safety, said House Speaker Adrienne Jones, a Democrat from Baltimore County. She goes on to say that our old ways of doing things no longer work. Residents are tired of hearing politicians restate our problems without offering any real solutions, Jones said in an apparent swipe at Governor Hogan. Now, later that day, a panel heard testimony on several crime bills that Hogan has introduced. Those measures would mandate harsher penalties for offenders who use and illegally possess firearms, toughen sanctions for witness intimidation resulting in serious physical injury or death, and expand the court's ability to admit statements made by intimidated witnesses, require criminals to pay restitution to their victims, and require that every sentence that a judge hands down for violent crime be posted in an online database. Hogan also has encouraged Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby to work more closely with state and federal prosecutors. Now, after hearing, Hogan's Deputy Legislative Officer, Kara Sullivan, cast his Judicial Transparency Bill, House Bill 355, as a public disclosure measure. Quote, this information will reveal trends about violent criminals who are being sentenced, Sullivan said. If a specific judge is giving much higher or much lower sentences than their counterparts in the same circuit or across the state, this bill provides a starting point to ask why. The same, she said, would apply to plea agreements. Now, Baltimore City Circuit Court Judge, however, Shannon Avery, told the committee that she opposed that bill on a number of grounds, including that it would disallow judicial decisions to be made on a case-by-case basis, and that tethering those decisions on governmental bodies is unconstitutional. Quote, the notion that judges in their individual sentencing decisions should be accountable to the executive branch or, frankly, the legislature or the public is not constitutional. It is clear by our code of conduct and the constitutional requirements of the process and separation of powers that there are not to be any accountability for any individual judicial decisions to any other agency of government. Now, Maryland State's Attorney Coordinator Stephen Kroll testified in support of the bill that will crack down on witness intimidation, which he said is an intuitive process. If you, like me, feel that stop snitching is real and stop snitching exists, then you should support this bill, he said. But it appears that Democrats in Annapolis are skeptical of the merits on a few of Hogan's initiatives, not just those of crime bills, as Maryland Matters also reports on a school accountability plan floated by Governor Larry Hogan that was met with skepticism on Tuesday by state senators who said that the plan to allow specialized teams to take over struggling schools is a duplicative measure of current law and would create an undue burden on school communities. Hogan's Community and Local Accountability for Struggling Schools Act would allow school-based committees to take over schools with persistent low showings in the state's star rating system. The committees, comprised of the county superintendent, a county board of education member, a parent, a principal, and 2 county teachers, would develop a 5-year plan for that school, including new goals for student achievement and changes to curriculum, budget, school schedule, staffing policies, and professional development. 14 schools have received a 1-star rating from the state for 2 consecutive years and will qualify as an innovation school if the program were in place now. In unveiling the legislation in December, Hogan said that it was key to improving accountability in public schools. But Democrats and education advocates opposed the bill, saying it was largely mimics the school improvement process that's already an existing law and only adds an additional layer of bureaucracy. Now, in 2017, the majority in the Maryland General Assembly passed the Protect Our Schools Act to guide the state's implementation of the federal Every Student Succeeds Act. That bill set parameters for identifying struggling schools, defined federally as the lowest performing 5% of Title I schools and high schools with a graduation rate lower than 67%, and implementing locally developed comprehensive support and improvement plans. Now, the first batch of so-called CSI schools were identified in April of last year. 42 schools statewide, including 37 in the city of Baltimore, 3 in Prince George's County, and 2 in Anne Arundel County. The process is underway to develop local improvement plans by panels that include principals, school leaders, teachers, and parents. I'm just trying to understand substantively how this is any different than the current law, said Senate Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Chairman Senator Paul Piskey, a Democrat from Prince George's County, as he pointed out holes in the Hogan proposal. Senator Clarence Lamb, a Democrat from Howard County, said that the bill seemed to add an additional layer of unnecessary bureaucracy. And be sure to tune in for the weekly radio show DMV Daily Live, as I'll be joined by my 2 co-hosts, Ivan Bates and Mark McLaren, produced as always by my main man, Sean Stinnett, as we break down the recent Iowa and Maryland special elections, the President's State of the Union, and the Governor's State of the State, the impeachment trial, and so much more politics, while having a special invited city council candidate join us to discuss their candidacy in the upcoming April 28th primary election. This Friday at 3 p.m., an earlier new time, we will be live streaming at DMV Daily News on our Facebook and YouTube pages. And every Friday thereafter, we will be live from 5 to 7 p.m. So make sure you tune in and catch the livest political show in the region, the DMV Daily Radio Show. I'm your man, Mr. Politics, and this has been your DMV Daily Dose for Thursday, February 6, 2020. For more information on the articles that I've mentioned, just go on over to that website at www.dmvdaily.news.